does put it in, we're either going to see an elimination or we're going to see a massive chip leader. Nothing just yet. 10-10-8. King of Hearts on the turn. So many outs now for Shem.
Shem Gold's our commanding chip leader with 608,000.
So right off the bat, you get to see the different stacks, and I come in as the chip leader with over 100 big blinds, which is heaps of chips. Now you might ask yourself, why is this so important? Well, in poker, especially in final tables, having the most amount of chips is super important because that means you can be the most aggressive and put a lot of pressure on people. And essentially there's a thing called ICM in poker, which means independent chip module or model. I don't know which one. It doesn't really matter. The main thing you need to understand is that when you are playing at the final table and there are pay jumps for every person that goes out, you are essentially getting paid to fold and not play hands. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and people who understand this gonna play very tight and very passive. They do not want to go out before people who are shorter than them and vice versa. And as you can tell from the stacks distribution, I'm the biggest by far, and a lot of short stacks. So the middling stacks are the ones that have the most pressure on them. And that means you're gonna see me play a few hands that I wouldn't otherwise play because of this. I play super aggressive to really try and pressure these middling stacks with the whole ICM pressure and the money jumps. I hope I explained it well, but essentially I'm in a really good place right now to go far and hopefully win the tournament with my chip distribution, and I'm gonna basically put it to use. I can't get scared now and start folding.
Navigated pretty deep through the Dukakis field himself, but is ever watchful from the rail. So I think Travis O'Grady, with the inspiration from Michael, his father.
Okay, so this again just illustrates what I just spoke about, because this is very unorthodox to do this. I'm essentially turning my hand into a bluff here. I don't hate it actually. I really like this play. Again, just because of ICM, the guy that's opening into my big blind is one of the middling stacks. And so that means there's a lot of ICM pressure on him. The downside is that I'm out of position, so he can play a lot of hands against me and still have that advantage. But my hand performs really well. I have a suited King X hand, which means I block a lot of his strong hands like Ace King, Kings, King Queen, etc. And I unblock some of his opening range because he's not gonna open a lot of hands with a 3x in his range. So if you were to play this, you want to go very polarized, meaning you either have the best hand possible or the worst, meaning aces, kings, maybe queens. I would definitely start, maybe calling jacks and listen, you don't want to get to a point where you 3-bet and the guy goes all in on you and you have to call ace king off or jacks. It gets very iffy. That's why you want to choose the best hands like aces, kings, maybe queens, and then some really shitty hands like king 5 suited, king 3 suited, ace deuce offsuit, those kind of hands. Alternatively, you can also just call here and play a hand, like play a small pot, but that's not what I like to do. I like to push the pace. I like to be aggressive with my chip stack, and I think it's totally fine with this ICM environment.
Down Shem, putting those chips to work. Finding the 3-bet with king 3 suited against Jerry here with ace queen. It's a pretty interesting spot given how much shorter there are players than Jerry. Like, he knows that Toby is going to be in the big blind next hand. He does have a hand that he definitely wants to see a flop with ace queen suited, I would think.
Jerry's decided it.
Looks like he is going to find a 4-bet. Clicking it up to 100k, it seems. Yep, basically a min click. I'm just double checking the clock just to see exactly how much of his stack he's going to be putting in here in comparison to the remainder of the tournament. He had his fun, but I think this is the point where you kind of have to let it go. Jerry is not picking a tight opponent here. He is picking the chip leader to do this again. So I think there are better battles to fight, and he does decide to let it go.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting spot. The thing that he did it's not really a thing. So Jerry actually had a decent hand, I'll give him that, but the thing that he did, it's not really a thing, especially with ICM 4-betting there. Like, I don't even know if he was doing it to induce so I can shove and he snaps me, or he's doing it as a bluff and he's gonna fold if I go all in. I think he was turning his hand into a bluff, which I really hate. You can just play in position with a really nice hand and try to keep letting me bluff. I'm not gonna lie, I was contemplating very hard here to like 5-bet to rip it on him, because the type of hands he do this with should only be aces and kings. And I block kings. So I was like, if I have ace-3 suited here, I might just rip it on him, to be honest. But then again, like you heard the commentators say, this guy is, you know, full betting the chip leader. It's not a spot you really ever want to bluff. It seems very punty. I don't like his play at all. Obviously, it got it done. I ended up folding. I think the worst thing you can do is call here and try and see a flop. I think it's better to either go all in or just fold. I know I'm getting insanely good price here. I'm getting like 48k to win like 165, 170k. So I need like 25%, and against ace queen I actually do have that, but against other hands I'm actually crushed. If he has ace king, if he's got kings or aces, I'm really dead. So that was just a spot that's, I think, very unlucky. I love my play personally. I dislike his, but it ended up working out for him, and that's poker sometimes.
As we see Shem opening ace 9-0 here and Jerry waking up with queens in the big blind. These guys are probably going to tango again. We saw the 4-bet come out from Jerry before with the ace queen suited against Shem. Interesting to see what size he decides to take with these queens, because I don't think he's going to be just calling. So he goes in the middle, splits it to 48k. And a quick fold from Shem, not even thinking twice about defending this one. I wonder whether or not there's a bit of history there. Saw him deliberate the king 3 suited and then snap fold the ace 9-0. Doesn't even consider peeling a flop even with the chip lead.
That's hilarious. So this is pretty standard. I open ace 9-0. Pretty good hand, especially when you have the chip lead. But again, our old good friend Jerry in the big blind wakes up with queens. He 3-bets me. I think this one is a pretty easy fold. Again, it's a very underbluffed spot in the big blind. People don't tend to 3-bet bluff too often. And we just don't have a hand that we can really defend. If it was ace-9 suited, I would definitely call. And it's funny how the commentator said that I was tanking with king 3 suited, but snap folded ace-9 off. There I was really contemplating just going all in on him because I really felt like he was full of shit. Here it seemed stronger. It's the second time he did it. I don't think he would do it, you know, with bullshit here, and I'm very happy to see that he had queens, so I was very much behind.
We can see a few people hovering around in the background. There are still heaps of tournaments happening at the APT in Campbelltown. Tom, what else have you got running at the moment?
Max Mindset main event flight is happening in the background as well as...
So this is a pretty interesting spot. My friend Neil opened sevens, pretty standard. I have king 10 suited. I wasn't really sure in this spot if I want to 3-bet and put pressure or just call. My reasoning behind it is that I know Neil is a good friend of mine, and his playstyle, I just thought that he's not gonna fold very much, and he might just like 4-bet, go all in very wide as well, and I have a pretty nice hand to play in position. In hindsight, seeing that the other guy, Jack, calls ace-10 off, might be a mistake to let other people into the pot. Maybe I should just 3-bet and fold to a 4-bet or resistance. I'm not entirely sure about this spot, to be honest. I think you can go either way. I think you can mix it, and I think you can be fine. Anyway, we are multi-way 3-handed, which doesn't usually happen in final tables, so this is going to be exciting. Let's see a flop.
We are poker through until Sunday, and there is truly a game for all price points and all styles of play.
Doesn't hit anybody. Would have hit a Queen Jack O, which folded pre-flop. However, at the moment, sevens is still ahead. Looks like he knows that. He's going to find a C-bet here. Hitting 13k, roughly 1/4. Shem with a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, 1 overcard to the board, and the chip lead. Off the back of that king 3 suited, we know that he's definitely got moves. Doesn't decide to use them this time. Maris as well finds the fold.
Alright, so another interesting spot. He decides to go ahead and bet with the sevens. Very small sizing too. Now I'm in the middle, kind of like a sandwich, so I'm in a very tough spot. Yes, I have backdoor flush draw and backdoor straight draw, but that's about it. I have 1 over to the board. I could hit a king, but that might not even be good. Honestly, I contemplated everything here. Calling is fine. Raising is fine, folding is fine. I think that if it was heads up and there wasn't a guy behind me, I would definitely either call or raise. I wouldn't consider folding, but because there was a guy behind me who can squeeze, who could do a lot of stuff, I decided to just take the very passive and safe approach and just let that one go.
And it's interesting here, we saw this earlier. There was an open and a 3-bet with the king 3. This time Shem elects to just defend the small blind with the king 10 suited. So we are going to see these guys battling for the 3rd time now. At the moment it's 2-0 to Jerry. We'll see what Shem has to say for himself on this next hand. He is dominated. And he does outflop Jerry, however Jerry does have that gut shot Broadway draw.
So another interesting spot against Jerry for the third time now, as you heard the commentators say. This time he opens ace king suited, another premium. I think this time we have a pretty easy flat in the small blind with king 10 suited. I like flatting these kind of hands. You could 3-bet bluff them. Definitely no folding going on at all pre-flop. I elected to just, play a small pot this time and not go into this aggressive war zone against him because he's shown me some resistance, which is what the commentator said. So I took that into account and I was like, okay, this guy is not tight, he's not gonna fold. Let's just play a suited Broadway kind of hand and try to, see what's up.
Jerry is betting 11k, roughly 1/4 the size of the pot. Pretty quick call from Shem, not really thinking too much about it.
I think the flop is pretty easy. I think you want to check with your entire range. I don't think there's a lot of donk leading going on. And Jerry bets a 1/4 pot, which I think is on the small side, which indicates to me that he's not very strong. That being said though, we don't really have any other thing to do besides call here. We have second pair. We are probably ahead, but we don't have a strong enough hand to raise for value or for bluff. So when that's the case, you just want to call and keep letting them bluff, or hopefully they slow down.
Checks and double checks his cards.
So the turn is the complete brickiest brick, meaning it doesn't change anything and it goes check, check. I think that's pretty standard, but it also indicates to me how weak he is. When he checks the board on the turn with a flush draw and a straight draw and 2 broadways, it's pretty clear to me that he doesn't have a very strong hand. He doesn't have sets, he doesn't have 2 pair. He wouldn't have over pairs. I think those would bet for protection / value as well. So it's a pretty clear indication to me that I'm good here. Maybe the only hand I lose to here is ace 10, but that's about it. So in this kind of spot, I think it's definitely a mistake to go for check because the other guy has showdown value, but we have a clear value bet. We can't go too big though because we are very capped. We can't represent really full houses or something too strong, so I think block betting makes a lot of sense. Block betting is when you bet very small and hope to get called by something very weak that can't fold, because if they start folding these kind of hands like ace highs, then they will be very exploited in the long run, and then I can start turning a lot of hands into bluffs, and then they're gonna be over folding. So this is a good sizing to go for, something like 20 to 30% pot.
Jerry checks back on a river 4 of spades. I don't know whether or not Shem is going to find a really small block here, try and get calls from hands like 10-9 suited, 10-8 suited, 9s, 8s. Don't think he would have thought that Jerry would have checked a queen twice, and definitely doesn't think that Jerry would have, if that's the case, any sets or over pairs. Looks like he decides on 15k, roughly 1/5. Very small bet, crying for a call from anything. Very confident he's got the best hand here. Jerry's considering it. Looks like he may be able to extract 15k from him here. Double checking all of the hands. And he does call, and Shem's going to pick up a nice pot. Very nice thin value bet on the river.
So as you can see, I elected to bet very small, 15k into 70k, which is 20% pot. Jerry is in a very tough spot. He has ace king high. I don't hate his call. I would do the same. He ends up calling because I could be bluffing some hands, but it's very rarely do I bluff with the sizing. And we get the max basically from his hand, so that's why you want to go very small. Block betting, it worked out to perfection.
So the blinds have increased as well to 4,000 to 8,000. Blind for this event was $1,500, standing on, meaning that there is $31,000 for first place, along with that $12,000 Drakakis ring. And Jerry again going to take it to Shem, defending the ace deuce. Oh, sorry, the jack 10 offsuit here.
So again, this is pretty not standard. Ace deuce offsuit is a hand you will see professionals fold in the cutoff all the time. Now if you are a mature player, you might see the ace and be like, oh wow, it folded to me, I have an ace, I'm gonna open it. But it's actually in reality a pretty shitty card, pretty shitty hand I should say. But the reason why I open it is, again, ICM, I'm the chip leader, I have a blocker to a very good hand, so I want to open that and apply pressure. He again has a pretty legitimate hand to defend, jack 10 offsuit, so fair enough. We get to a flop of king 6-10 with a flush draw, and I think I have a mandatory c-bet here, but I don't love it because I really don't have much going on.
He is going to connect with the flop, flopping middle pair, bit of a role reversal from what was happening last time. This time Shem has the ace high, Jerry with a pair of tens. Bit of 16k here from Shem. I don't think Jerry's going to be doing anything other than calling, and that he does. Repeat 6 on the turn.
So I elected to go for a third sizing on the flop. I think that's totally fine. Jerry has nothing else to do besides call again, which is funny enough, and we see a turn of 6.
The card is definitely more weighted towards Jerry's type of range. He's going to be defending a lot more 6s pre-flop than Shem would, you'd think, be opening.
So you heard the commentator say it, and it's correct. The turn is actually favorable for the big blind, and I was actually surprised when he didn't lead it, which made me feel like he's stronger than he is. For me, I think ace high is good enough to go for showdown now. He could still have some draws, some flush draws, some straight draws. So I don't think betting makes a whole lot of sense. I could start making some 10x fold actually if I bet very big here, but I decided to just check, especially seeing that he doesn't really like folding much, and try and get it to showdown really.
I wonder whether or not Jerry is going to do something very similar to what Shem did 2 hands previous, betting 15k on the river. Looks like he's gone even less, 10k? Man, that's a tiny bet. Shem knows it too. Bit of an eye roll, realises that he's probably getting milked in a very similar way to him, the way he milked Jerry just a few hands previous. I'm thinking this one through. You've got to wonder about the hands that you can beat here. You no longer beat 9, 8, 7, 8. You do beat Queen, Jack, and Jack 9, but that's basically the only hands that you're kind of ahead of here. Even some ace highs are ahead of you. Hands like ace Jack and ace Queen that may have only flatted pre-flop. He does flick it in and he's going to get the bad news. The hands that is going back and forth between these two.
Yeah, so that was a funny, very similar hand to the one I played against him, like literally a minute ago. He bets even smaller though, 10k into 80k. That's like 15% pot. Listen, I'm never calling there knowing or, thinking that I'm going to win. And some of you might watch this and be like, why did you call there? It's so obvious you're never winning. It's more about the principle because, yes, I could have found the fold. I was contemplating it, as you can see. I didn't snap. But the commentator even said this. He does have some bluffs that could try to go for the sizing. And people do this all the time. You may not realize this. People use block betting as a bluff because it doesn't look like a bluff, right? It looks like you're milking the person. He could have had Queen Jack. He could have had Jack 9. The 8 is not the best river, but there's a lot of hands that I actually beat that could turn their hand into a bluff and use the sizing. So I don't love it, but I think with this texture, I call. There are some boards where he bets this amount or any amount, I fold, even if it's one big blind. If the river was a jack, a queen, a 9, I think I fold. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's, it's 1.5 big blinds. It's not a huge deal to pay to see the hand. People do find these bluffs, especially if they're good enough, they will find bluffs for the sizing. I don't know. It's kind of like, the GTO is definitely a call, but in reality, do you really want to call here? Probably not. So I don't hate just folding here and letting that one go, to be honest. But again, like having the deuce in my hand is very good because it unblocks his bluffs. So it is what it is. It's a very small hand. Let's just fucking move on.
Does put it in.